Welcome to hour number 2 on a Monday with hashtag Daily K's host, Peter Bint. Tired of just scratching the surface of Korea? Want to get deep in the weeds?
We unpack everything about Korea through its history on
Now and Then
with
David. It has been many a month, probably more than a year or maybe approaching 2, that we've had David Tizard on the show. And that's the first time ever I think I've said your name for you, David. And as a host, maybe I neglected this fact. You know, all our listeners, we have the same vague format for our introductions into corners, where we say the corner name and then with blah, blah will be said by the guest. But it escaped my mind and my memory that I hate saying my own name, like Peter. Even someone else called Peter, like saying, all right, Peter, that's weird. It's unfamiliar. I'm sorry to have put you through that and our other guests for all these years. I think maybe we should change it up like that. I'll say the names and then maybe you can say my name if I ever have a need to do so through my own lips. Would that be okay?
Pete. You're the king. This is your show. I just spoke up and I'm glad you didn't cut off my head. I heard your Game of Thrones references earlier. So thank you for listening to my voice and thank you for allowing me not to just keep saying my name, because you're right. It is a bit weird. And we associate, talking about oneself in the third person is like Zlatan Ibrahimovic can do it. He does it.
Yeah. Not many other people can pull it off.
No.
Yeah, I don't have many friends. I don't think I have.
Are you just going to stop the sentence there? I don't have many friends. That's
well,
it.
That's true with old age as well. But I don't have, I think any friends, I could also stop it there, but any friends who speak, in the third person, I think that's not very attractive, is it, as a trait to many people?
No.
Yeah.
And that's what you're making us do here. And so
I
finally stepped up to the plate and I took one for the team. And
do it, yeah.
There'll be a change somewhere along the line, I'm sure. But we trust you, Pete.
All our other guests are going to be so grateful for what you've done today, breaking through some boundaries there. Today's hashtag, because it's Ipdong today, one of those 24 seasonal divisions. First up, how do you feel, or did you feel about those when you first heard about them? Because we don't have that in the UK, at least not that I know of. Maybe in pagan times they had something similar, right?
Well, we, coming from Britain, we have GMT. You can go to the place in London, in Greenwich, where, time is said, everything is judged from that. But of course, that's a rather modern invention. And I discovered learning more about Korean time, Korean seasons. It slowly helped me understand everything a little bit better, especially, for example, the traditional music, which goes on a completely different rhythm scheme than just the 4/4 that we're used to.
Yeah,
it's based on the seasons. It's based on these intervals. And so understanding the time, understanding the seasons of divisions helped me understand the music, helped me understand the culture, helped me understand the people. So they're all part of a broader connected network of what it means to be Korea. And I think that's why you do a great job on this show, because you help all the listeners out there get beyond just the K-pop, which is amazing, of course. But the more you get into it, the more you can understand the people of this land and their story. And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, we do say it sometimes just a bit frivolously, I think, like just saying, the culture, if you know about that, you'll fall deeper in love with the country. But it really is like the truth. And sometimes even I forget that, But it is so important to have that kind of background, whether you're doing business in a country, you're going to travel there, or you're just into the dramas, the K-pops, the celebrities. It will give you a deeper knowledge and a deeper appreciation, we hope, of Korea.
Have you noticed this, though, Pete, that sometimes you might be talking to Korean people about this stuff and they're like, I don't know that. You know more than me about Korea.
Many times.
Yes.
For you as a professor, it must be even more. But for me, just as a broadcaster, like talking about aspects of Korean culture, especially when we're targeting foreigners, we learn so much. And I go home and I tell my wife, and she'll be scratching her head. She'll be like, "Are you sure?" I'll be like, "I'm pretty sure. Like, my writers have prepared this."
Yes.
And it also works in lots of other ways. If you're a foreigner in a country and you're really keen on learning more and more, my father was like that. He used to love the history of Korea. So he'd tell my mum some stories or ask her some questions. She'd be like, I don't know about this figure in Korean history, this war or this battle. And it can actually give you, maybe conversely, I don't know so much about certain British things that maybe people who are interested in British culture or have moved there know about, which is kind of, I guess, counterintuitive. You might not expect that, but it's very true. Today's hashtag is 겨울 or winter. What does that bring to mind for you?
Well, you were speaking about Game of Thrones earlier, and George R. R. Martin, he had that quote about winter, which was "Nothing burns like the cold." That's a very good one.
Wow.
But with winter, obviously the winters here in Korea, they're white, and I do like that.
Yes.
Because where I'm from in the south of England, we don't get white winters that much. There's not much snow.
Yeah.
And so I love the white winters here, and they're white winters and they're blue skies. And it's this beautiful combination because we often associate winter with darkness.
Sure.
But in South Korea, the winters are very bright. In South Korea, you need your sunglasses in winter, not in summer.
This is very true. Unless it's snowing at that time, it will be usually, even when I've been out to the ski resorts, so bright, won't it? Yeah.
Because you get these bright blue skies and you get the white snow reflecting, and it's sunglasses time in winter. Let me just give you one final thing about winter. This comes from the French writer Albert Camus.
Okay.
He said, "In the depth of winter, I finally learned that there was in me an invincible summer."
Oh.
Which I kind of like, that in the darkness you find the light. In the darkness you find the summer. And that's true of winter. Winter's only great because of summer, and summer's only great because of winter. So I think they go together so nicely.
It really is about the comparison. And last week we were talking about us not being in touch with the seasons and the weather, being like all insulated in our apartments and modern day living. I think there's so much to learn, isn't there, from being outside.
Shall we do the next show
nature.
outside,
I'd
Pete?
love to.
It would be interesting, wouldn't it?
At another station that won't be named, they used to have this little truck that would go around and they could do outdoor broadcasts. I think one of the first times I had a proper conversation with you was at a football tournament
that
was being hosted and you were playing there.
Yeah.
And broadcasting outside is amazing. And with technology these days, I reckon we could pull that off.
Our sound person and PD are out this side of the room. They're saying, no.
They are.
The wind, the conditions.
They're doing that, like, cut it out sign with their thumb against their neck. Today's topic, a very interesting one. I don't know if we've mentioned this happening before when some famous, maybe foreign celebrities have benefited from it, but we've never taken even a medium dive on today's topic.
So today we're going to be talking about honorary citizens of Korea. This is 명예국민. And there are many different types of citizenship, but we're going to be talking about people that have been awarded by the country of Republic of Korea, of South Korea. They've been awarded citizenship through their deeds, through their actions. And since this began, there's only been 4 people that have been awarded this. That's
just 4?
Just 4. It's an incredible thing.
Wow.
And today we're going to focus on one of them, and we're going to focus on one. And hopefully we'll do some of the other ones another time rather than go through them. But only 4 people have been made an honorary citizen. And I think it's an important topic because citizenship in South Korea is very different from other parts of the world. And the idea of citizenship in Korea is changing over time. But it's not like, for example, citizenship in the United Kingdom, citizenship in the United States. I know many people that have changed their citizenship over the years. And normally they're becoming British citizens or they're becoming American citizens, but and that's because they come or Britain and America, various other countries, but they're civic nationalism, which means that you can go there, you can adapt to the country, you can adapt to the culture, you can take a test, and you can become a citizen of that country and get the passport, no problem.
Sure.
It's a bit different in South Korea.
It is, isn't it? I was going to say, what is this akin to? Like, from our home country of Britain, do they have honorary citizens? I mean, I've heard of giving you the keys to the town or a city or something like that if you've done something well. And we do have that in Korea, like separately, I think, right? You can become or be given the keys to Seoul or something like that, or an honorary Seoul citizen. But the honor we're talking about today must be one of the highest you could give to a foreigner in Korea.
Yes, it is. You asked about around the world or in different places. So, you know Lewis Hamilton?
Yes, the racing driver.
The racing driver. Last year, Brazil gave him honorary citizenship. Lewis Hamilton he has Brazilian citizenship now. And just
for his achievements in the sport.
He also loved Ayrton Senna, the famous Brazilian racing. And so they reached out and they said, we're going to give you honorary citizenship. And Lewis Hamilton posted on his social media, thank you very much. The United States has awarded 8 individuals since 1963 honorary citizenship, and that includes Nelson Mandela and the Dalai Lama.
That's good company to keep.
Yes, and Cambodia made Angelina Jolie an honorary citizen. I would like to make Angelina Jolie an honorary citizen of my house.
That would be lovely. I would visit as well and apply for citizenship too.
But let's start on this, Peter. Let me ask you a question if I can. How do you perceive your own identity, or how do you explain it to others? And this, it might be a personal topic, or I'm not sure if I can go there with
not
you.
at all.
But you know, in terms of you, in terms of your Koreanness, or in terms of your Britishness, or your children, how do you understand your identity?
Yeah, that's interesting. Like ever since I was young, I think because I came to Korea a lot and my mum spoke a lot of Korean, even growing up in England, right? I would always say I'm half Korean, I'm half British. I'd say 반 영국, 반 한국 here, and half Korean, half British in the UK. And I don't know, I don't even know if that's okay to say, you know, in this day and age with being politically correct and stuff. And as I've grown up, I don't know, in more recent years, I've thought, is it okay to say I'm half of something and half of something else? Because that kind of implies that you're not completely this or completely that. So I've tried to like maybe say I'm British and Korean instead of saying half. And then I went through a phase when I said here in Korea, when taxi drivers would inevitably ask the question, where are you from as soon as you get in? I'd say my mum is Korean and my father is British. And then I just kind of leave it up to them to decide.
How would they react generally when you explained that, taxi drivers?
They'd one or two things. They'd either focus on the fact that, oh, you're from Britain, football, gentleman, blah, blah, blah. Or they'd focus on, wow, you don't look Korean at all. And your Korean's really good. And then, oh, it's because your mum's Korean, that kind of thing. I must say, for me personally, it's been overwhelmingly positive. So that's why I'm not very sensitive about this. I haven't put in too much thought into it because I know there are some people who are maybe mixed, half this, half that, or whatever, however you want to phrase that. Or even Kyopos, who can get very sensitive about identity and how to describe it. But for me, it's always been overwhelmingly positive. It's not something that I've had sleepless nights over or anything. I felt it such a blessing, to be honest.
And I think you exude that blessing. You show it. And I think it's important for people to have that positive example. Everybody's different. And even like, as you said, you're going through your own journey in terms of identity and language and things. And in 10 years, you might have a different perspective on it as when Gio and Ellie and that grow up as well. So in South Korea, for the most part, maybe this is why the taxi drivers would ask you, or the citizenship, and our listeners probably know this, but citizenship in South Korea for the longest time, it was seen as a family. It was seen as homogenous. It was seen as this 단일 민족 국가. So citizenship and belonging to Korea wasn't done by a passport. It wasn't done like in other multicultural countries, but it was determined instead by your blood. It was determined by your ethnicity, and you were either in it or you weren't. And when we did the Hanoks, and I talked about Peter Bartholomew, he was described as the blue-eyed guardian of Hanoks. And this is a man that knew more about Korea than most Koreans have ever forgotten. Or the other way around. But he was still seen as not quite Korean. You know, he was the blue-eyed guardian. It made him different. And it's really important to understand how, for the longest time, Koreans have understood citizenship and why to to come into the country, to be given citizenship, to talk about citizenship, you have to understand the Korean history and the Korean perspective, I think.
Yeah, and I guess that is very different from, us growing up in the UK, particularly me being in London, so multicultural there, right?
Yeah.
And you would be completely at least scolded and even worse for saying, you're not British to someone who's emigrated there, right? Just picked up a passport. You can't say that.
Even where are you from has become a sort of loaded, dangerous question, hasn't it?
Right, but here in Korea, we're at a different stage. There's a different background. And that bloodline thing, what comes to mind for me is, even though my mum gave up her citizenship when she became a British citizen, marrying my father, she had to do that at the time. You couldn't have two passports. And she went to the UK. I would still get the benefit that my mum has a Korean bloodline. Coming here, I get a special visa, saying you have Korean heritage, your lineage, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So they do place a very big importance on that still to this day. Yeah.
Well, let me tell you about just in terms of citizenship before and after 1998, which is 24 years ago. It's not that long ago. We're not going into deep history, but in Korean terms, 1998 is a couple of lifetimes ago.
Yeah.
Things move here so quickly. Before June the 14th, 1998, if your mum was Korean, but your father was not, the law stated that you wouldn't become a Korean national. You wouldn't get automatic citizenship of Korea.
Okay.
So even if your mum was Korean,
Wow.
but your father wasn't, you weren't considered a Korean citizen.
Just 24 years ago.
Just 20, and I believe that would have probably been because of the situation with the war, with lots of American people over here and vice versa, and then the Korean involvement in Vietnam, and all of these things, as well as the culture. But it was not based on your mother. If your mother was Korean but your father wasn't, you weren't considered Korean by law 24 years ago in Korea.
Wow. The other way round, it might be okay if your father was Korean.
Absolutely. Okay. If your father was Korean. And so you can see there that element of, it's a loaded word, and I'm loath to use it, but that kind of patriarchal attitude that it goes down from the male lineage. But that was the case until 1998. And after that, after June 14th, 1998, the law was changed so that whether your mother or your father was a national of, they were a Korean citizen, then you would also acquire Korean citizenship by birth. So, for example, my wife is Korean, I'm not, but our kids were born after 1998, so they got Korean citizenship. Whereas if we were having this conversation 25 years ago, Edward and Elizabeth would not have Korean citizenship.
That is interesting. Yeah, same case for me with my British passport. I didn't even know that fact. Interesting.
Welcome to Arirang Radio.
If you are in Jeju,
88.7 in Jeju City,
88.1 in Seogwipo City,
101.9 in the Daejeong area.
Arirang Radio.
We're back for Now and Then with David Tizard in the studio talking about honorary citizens of Korea. I learnt something new, a cocktail party fact. Just 4 people have got this honorary citizenship in Korea. And quite a few as well. Just a few in the US, you were saying, like 8 people or something like that since the 1960s. I thought maybe other countries might dole them out a bit more frequently, but this does seem to be something that is bestowed only upon really deserving people in the eyes of the country.
Really deserving, or to make a public statement, or to give a message. And let's just be clear, sometimes people are made honorary citizens of Seoul.
Yeah.
Far more people have been made honorary citizens of Seoul. But honorary citizens of a country is a very special thing. And
you're giving them like legal rights in that sense.
Yeah, it's different according to each case, but it is, especially in Korea where we've discussed thus far, citizenship is such an important thing, so integral to one's physical body, physical existence, that to give someone honorary citizenship is, a very special thing.
You don't take that lightly. But this is separate. Like, people who are not Korean can get Korean citizenship right? It may not be as easy as other places and the procedure's different, but there are people who started off with a different nationality and are now Korean citizens, right?
Yes. And I could do it if I wanted. I've had a look at it, and you have to proclaim the oath, and you have to do various tests and such forth. It's changing over time. But since 1948, 227,000.
Okay.
250,000 people have attained Korean citizenship. That's quite a small number. I expected it to be much more, actually.
Sure, with the amount of maybe foreign marriages as well.
Yeah.
Not so many people, I think, like in maybe the UK and the US, would just go over there individually or as a foreign family and get citizenship. I could see that would be low because, like you said, it's been a homogenous society for so long.
It has, and you're right that 3/4 have done so through marriage, and 2/3 of the people that have attained Korean citizenship were from China and Vietnam. So there are close cultural, they're both Confucian cultures. There are language similarities, and particularly the ones from China, we have those Chinese Koreans that they do share that similar ethnicity.
Yeah.
And so it just goes to show you that very few people have acquired Korean citizenship over the years. I'm suddenly thinking of Brother Anthony, An Son-jae, he previous president of the Royal Asiatic Society, Korea. He became a Korean citizen. He did that.
Yeah, there are a few celebrities as well, like foreigners who've been around for a while who maybe talk about doing this or have done it. And then they get a lot of respect for doing it from Korean people. Right?
Yes, absolutely. Because it's a big thing. One of the things that will come into it is national service. So you know about the Korean military, and our listeners will know about this. And while we're talking, by the way, I think we talked about your identity, Pete, and how you understand it. It would be interesting to hear some of the listeners, their own stories, because I see the names every week, and they send in the messages, and it'd be interesting to hear their take on their identity.
Do you know, I don't mean to interrupt,
Please
but
do.
I have. What about you? You know, as someone who's British parents, but you've lived in Korea now for a long time. You've married a Korean. Your kids are half Korean or part Korean, part British, however you want to put that. What about your identity? Do you feel like you're in any way Korean now?
Not really, but I do find myself saying "we" when I talk about Korea, which is a sign, which is a linguistic sign that I think emotionally or psychologically, I'm certainly not in terms of legal rights or physically, because people might say you don't look Korean, but you could pass. I think Pete. You could.
Just about.
I couldn't.
No,
no. You said that very quickly, Pete.
No, not in this day and age, but maybe in a couple of decades' time, it'll be like London, where anyone can be a Londoner, anyone can be a Brit.
Maybe it's because I'm a Londoner. Absolutely. But I think emotionally, I definitely Korean. But there's also this cosmopolitan in me. There's also this man of the world. I am British, but I don't hold a huge... I'm very proud to be British. I am, and I'm very proud to be English as well.
Yeah.
But I like to be a man of the world, if I can. And so that's my identity.
Okay.
In South Korea, identity and citizenship is tied to military service. And
if you're a male, right?
If you're a male, I go into both the genders. And so for a boy born to Korean parents anywhere in the world, so even if you're born overseas now, but if your mother is Korean or your father is Korean, you're getting that Korean citizenship, remember, because of that 1998 law, then if you don't do your military service within a certain time, your Korean citizenship will be formally renounced, and it will go away if you're a male.
Okay.
Now, a Korean female, they can be a dual citizen for the rest of their life, but they must go through the process. So there's a completely different path to citizenship for men and women. And in a time and an era where we talk about equality and, bringing the sexes or the genders or all these words closer together, there's such a fundamental difference that we'll go through for those considering Korean citizenship for a male and a female.
Yeah, because I don't know about your kids. I'm assuming the same as my kids. They currently hold both, right? A British passport and a Korean passport. And your kids as well. It's one boy, one girl.
Yeah.
And they're going to go through such a different decision when they come of age, right? I think like it says in the script as well, females, they have to go through some procedure, but then they can be dual citizens,
They just
right?
file it. And, it's just paperwork. But for the boys, it's such an existential decision because if they don't do military service, they become a foreigner in their own country, essentially. And so citizenship is tied to doing your military duty here. It involves responsibilities, your duty to protect the Choguk, the fatherland, the nation, not the person, the country itself.
Yeah, you've got to basically pay for your citizenship with those 18 months or 2 years of service, right? Whereas, females don't need to do that. You're right. In this day and age, is that fair?
The irony being that my daughter would be a much better soldier than my son. Elizabeth would be right at the front lines giving orders. Edward's a little bit more contemplative. He would be there. And so, citizenship is a big thing. Let's talk about one of these, somebody that has been made an honorary citizen. So as I said at the beginning, this is a 명예국민. It's an honor bestowed by the Ministry of Justice. There's a nice segue in there somewhere. On foreigners of exceptional merit. It's a symbolic honor. So the recipient, and we said there's only been 4, they don't have to take the oath of citizenship, and they don't actually receive any rights, privileges, or duties typically held by a citizen. So a citizen of South Korea, they have duties, which includes military service, and that duty then gives them rights and privileges, such as healthcare, insurance. So that honorary citizenship doesn't give them any of those things. So they avoid the duties, but they also avoid the rights. But the first citizen that we'll talk about today got so many privileges from this that it was interesting.
Fabulous. All right, we'll get to that character, who it was, why as well. And I'm sure many of you know who this person is. We're back for part 3, now and then with David Tizard in the studio, and we're talking about honorary citizenship. We've been talking more generally about citizenship as well, but now to get to one of the only 4 people ever in South Korea's history to become an honorary citizen. I and many Koreans are a massive fan of this person.
Absolutely, yeah. When I first arrived, you couldn't go anywhere without seeing this gentleman on the television and the adverts, doing pizza commercials, just a national hero. And like I spoke about Peter Bartholomew as the blue-eyed guardian of the Hanok, perhaps this gentleman, Guus Hiddink.
Yes.
The Dutch football manager was, I'm not sure what colour his eyes were, but let's go with blue.
Yes.
The blue-eyed saviour of Korean football.
Wow.
Or, for our international listeners, soccer.
Yes, and he's got his own Korean nickname. I don't know if that was linked to the honorary citizenship or if this was just yelled out throughout 2002 during the World Cup. Hidongu is what a lot of people call him here. And he will definitely, I'm certain, because the World Cup's coming up in a couple of months, he'll be wheeled out again. There'll be adverts with Hiddink in a couple of months' time. He'll be probably on Korean TV as well.
And his passion equals the South Korean passion for him. This is a love story, I think, between, and, just to make it clear, we won't go too deep in the history, but when foreigners first came to these shores, if you think of Hendrik Hemmel, when they arrived on Jeju, they were shoved away. They said, we don't want you people.
Of course.
And then centuries later, Hiddink becomes a citizen. Now, Guus Hiddink, he started as the team manager of South Korea in January 2001. And when he arrived in his offices and around the place, he saw the number 16 everywhere. And so he asked his assistant, what's with this number 16? Is it some deep Confucian culture? Is it Asian tradition? Is the number 16 fortuitous in Korea? And the person said, no, it's because you're going to get us to the quarterfinals, the last 16. And Hiddink, and South Korea had never achieved that in their history. And Hiddink went, okay, this is a tall order.
There's a lot of pressure, because I don't think before he was manager that they'd ever even won a game. And they've been at many World Cup tournaments proper. They qualified many times, but I don't think they even won a game out of all of those World Cups, maybe 6 or 7. And in Korea we call it Shimyukgang, so everyone knows that number 16.
16, yeah.
But in the West we just call it maybe the second round of the World Cup or after qualifying for the groups.
Quarterfinals is Palgang, isn't it?
Yeah. But I don't. It was really odd because he was a very famous manager at the time. I think because it was in Korea, the World Cup, they just invested heavily and managed to persuade him. Because he didn't have a link with Korea before this.
No, he was doing a talk and the head of the Korean FA just came back to him 10 days later and said, here's the contract signed.
Wow.
And Hiddink was,
okay.
Gus Hiddink said that his first experience of Korea was during the France 1998 World Cup. He was the manager of the Dutch team at the time. And so great teams with Kluivert and Bergkamp and Overmars. And he said that sometimes the Dutch training sessions would overrun and the next teams would be waiting to come onto the training pitch because they're all in France.
Yeah.
And he said when it was other national teams, they would just come on and start playing. But the Korean team would wait at the side until the Dutch team had finished. Politely. And he realized that. And so that was his first impression and it stuck out to him. And he realized that there was something special about this country and this culture. When he was talking about how he had to change the game of football, he specifically said that hierarchy was affecting not only Korean culture, but even the game of football. And he said that while the team were playing during an attack, the youngest players were waiting for older players to carry on the move, to put the cross in, to take the shot, because the younger players didn't feel that it was their responsibility to do that. And so for Gus Hiddink, he had to say, that hierarchy in sport is gone. Whatever it might be in your culture, whatever it might be in the changing rooms, that's absolutely fine. But here in our team, everybody is equal. And that was revolutionary. And you say that Korea had never even won a game.
Yeah, there's no wonder with a culture like that, with maybe your young, good, skillful, energetic players feeling some kind of burden. They don't want to step on other people's toes.
Absolutely.
That was the biggest thing I think Hiddink did, right? He's a great coach, of course, and tactician, but I think just breaking that Korean culture in a good way in this team sport where you've all got to pull your weight, that helped them do so well.
And that's the importance of multiculturalism. That's the importance of cosmopolitanism, because in Korea they have the expression, and you've all heard it a million times, the frog in the well. The idea that you only have one perspective. You get tunnel vision, or you have your blinkers on. And either blue-eyed, green-eyed, brown-eyed, black-eyed people from different parts of the world, they can give us different perspectives. And that's really important. And that's what Hiddink did to South Korea. It wasn't just his skill, but it was his different perspective and the way he communicated these ideas. What was really interesting in the lead up to the World Cup, where Hiddink and all the players, by the way, were exempt from military service for their performance.
Yeah, for getting to the semi-finals.
They got to the semi-final. They even exceeded all expectations. And so they were treated as heroes, no military service for them, and everybody agreed with that. In the run-up to the World Cup finals, normally Korean teams, they would play friendly matches against countries that they could beat easily so that they could get some confidence up, get some goals under their belt. But Hiddink decided to play Brazil and France. He decided to play the hardest teams he could.
I'm assuming they were beaten.
They were beaten 5-0 in most of these games. And Hiddink's early nickname was 5-0 because he kept getting beaten 5-0.
Oh, so it wasn't all good from the beginning.
No, it wasn't all good. And the press hounded him. They were showing photographs of him and his girlfriend out and about in Seoul.
Oh, wow.
And so it could have gone a completely different way.
Wow.
But Hiddink, at the end of this story, to become an honorary citizen.
Yeah, so, for anyone who didn't watch that World Cup, and it's one of the best World Cups if you've got any affiliation with Korea, right, getting to the semis. I managed to go to their really crucial final group game against Portugal.
Oh, wow.
And Park Ji-sung scored a goal. It was a great goal as well. A bit
Brings
ball
it down
juggling.
his chest, doesn't he, and puts it,
And we won 1-0. I feeling that atmosphere in the stadium, like it was like unlike anything else. And I've been to like Wembley and Highbury and whatnot a few times. It's nothing like that. It was like, I don't know, like not football fans, just every Korean DNA was on alert, like cheering for the country.
I'm not normally jealous of you people. My jealousy is rising to be in that stadium at that time as people were making history. They were literally becoming part of Korean history. They were writing their own stories. And Hiddink was praised so much for his effect on the country. They saw the transformative. So because of getting Korea to the semi-finals, finishing fourth, eventually he became the first honorary citizen of the country. He was given a private villa on the South Korean island of Jeju. He has free flights for life on Korean Air and Asiana Airlines. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to
Wow.
say that.
Okay, no, that's fine.
He also gets free taxi rides anywhere in the country, anytime he wants. And Gwangju Stadium
Yeah.
was renamed Gus Hiddink Stadium.
I didn't know that because, we still play there relatively often. But, he should get a stadium named after him. I think that's okay. Gus Hiddink, he will be coming out on the screen so much in the World Cup. Every World Cup, they'll bring him out and he'll come and do some interviews and things like this.
So that was one of 4. There have been 4 throughout history. So
We've
got 3 more. We might do them coming up when we find the right time. We'll find some other honorary citizens. Maybe.
And this is different to like people who are naturalized just to play a sport, right? Like ice hockey players and things like that. That's a separate thing.
That's
right?
a separate thing. That's naturalization.
Okay.
And during Pyeongchang, the ice hockey team, they had 6.
Yes.
6 people there to try and get a gold.
I also heard that the Korea cricket team, which is not big at all here,
wow.
they were playing against Indonesia on the weekend to make it into the ICC, and it's just full of naturalized like Indians and Bangladeshis who've been living here. But that is not the same as this honorary citizenship.
Fair play to them. If they win the Cricket World Cup, if they
I'll be
win
cheering them on,
they might become, they'll get free flights and a villa.
Fabulous. David, I hope one day they consider you for at least an honorary citizenship of Seoul. You haven't got that already, right? You could well.
No, I'll take a free cab journey and a house and a stadium. Yes, okay.
That would be lovely. All right, we'll see you again next time. Thank you for being here.
I loved it. Thank you, Pete.
You can listen to Monday's segment Now and Then with David Tizard every Monday from 10 a.m. KST on #DailyK.